And we're back, everybody, and we are here with Dirk Manning. And may I call you the voice of our childhood, Mr. Tony Schiavone?
Well, if you want to, I heard it so many times that it's, yes, you may. Thank you.
Okay.
You got to come up with something else.
Old man. How about that one?
Comic book superstar.
Okay,
Yes.
how about that one? Yeah.
Comic book superstar. We're excited to talk about that. I feel like, Tony, people call you the voice of their childhood, and they weren't even really around at that time. Like, I'm sure some guys in AEW say you're the voice, and they were probably like, what, 2, 3?
Yeah, probably so. I think that maybe they picked it up on the network afterwards, or what was passed down or whatever. But you know, guys that are in their 30s, obviously, and grew up watching wrestling and watching TBS and watching TNT. They all it's amazing. It's amazing how much really I hear that.
Mm-hmm.
And I never thought it would come to this in my life, but there you go.
You know, one thing that I do think about all the time, especially because, you know, on What Happened When, you and Conrad go back and you've been doing 86 for the entire year. Right. And you're going back and you're looking back at everything you do. Now, there's no possible way in 1986 that you knew that in 2021, you'd be talking about it and rewatching it and reliving it. But does it kind of change or affect anything you're doing now? As in, like, when you're doing AEW, you're like, okay, someone might be watching this in 35, 40 years. So does it kind of change what you say, how you say it?
No, not really. Because we are TV 14, I'm a little bit more out there than I was. I don't think any of us knew in 1986 that the internet would rule our lives as much as it has. And so now everything that we did back then is shown on TV, and it could be seen on either the network or obviously on YouTube. But I tell you what it does. It makes me, going back and looking at 1986, it makes me appreciate my lot in life. I think not enough people have a chance to do that, to go back and look back and say, hey, I did that. I accomplished that. And I was part of that. And I was a big wrestling fan prior to that. And that's what we talk about in our comic book. And now I can go back and look at that and look back at that and fondly. I never thought I would look when I got out of wrestling in 2001. I thought, gone, never see it again, never do it again. So now that I'm back, I can go back and look at like 1986 and be very, very proud of a lot of things that we did, and the fact that I did accomplish a lot with, at that time, Turner Broadcasting. Even that 1 year I was with Vince in the WWE.
Now, Dirk, was Tony the voice of your childhood?
Oh man, no one's ever asked me this before, so I've been able to avoid the question. No, sorry.
Well, he's like only 2 years younger than me, so that's
right. You know, no. I discovered Tony's work after the fact, like he said, through things like the network and things like that. Gosh, we've never talked about this, Tony. So good question. Good on you, man. I kind of fell out of wrestling for a time as well. And it was right around the time when Tony was doing a lot of his WCW work. So when I got back in, it was when Tony had already left. So like literally I was like, Tony enters wrestling, Dirk Manning steps away, and then Tony leaves, Dirk Manning comes back. It's like we were not yet destined to coexist in the same industry at the same time, I suppose. But looking back then and going back and catching up on what I missed in that time frame, you know, I started to see Tony's stuff, and I thought, yeah, he's pretty decent, man. He's got some, you know, he could go somewhere in this business.
Now, how did you guys get connected in the first place?
It started with my attorney, Mike Dawkins, who happens to know Dirk Manning, and I think anybody in wrestling's probably heard of Mike Dawkins. We call him the gimmick attorney. He is the attorney for many wrestlers, a trademark attorney. We've gotten to know him through Conrad, and he contacted me and said, you ever thought about doing a comic book? And I said, well, no, I haven't, but I really would like to entertain the idea, because I know there's a lot of wrestling books out there. A lot of people have written wrestling books, and I'm not so sure. I've been asked many times, hey, are you going to write a book? And I got to thinking, man, I don't know if I am or not. But then when Dawkins approached me about doing a comic book, I said, you know, that's not a bad idea, because I like comics. I like superheroes. I like fantasy. I like sci-fi. And he said, well, I've got this guy who's really a nice guy and really professional and really can work with you on putting this comic book together. And then he told me that that guy was not available, so he introduced me to Dirk Manning.
There it is. There
I
it
was
is.
like, over.
I was
And
just
then
watching it coming in slow motion. Like,
No, he knew Dirk. They both live in Toledo, and they know each other. So he put me in contact with Dirk, and then he got me in contact with Drina. I guess Drina and Dirk at the same time, and we got on a Zoom. I don't know. Was it once a month, Dirk? Once every 3 weeks? I don't know how long it was.
it depended. You know, our first Zoom was I think kind of that introductory. Let's see how this is going to work. Because yeah, you know, to Tony's point, Dawkins was kind of playing both ends against the middle because he did the same thing to me. He's like, hey, how would you feel about writing a comic book with Tony Schiavone? And I was like, I'll entertain the idea. You know, like literally, it was like that was it. I didn't know Tony personally. I knew who he was, obviously, and his impact and on the business. But to Tony's latter point there, we ended up, once the project started, we were doing Zoom calls about every 3 weeks or a month for about a year. You know, really, when all was said and done, and I knew that would be a pretty huge commitment. So it was kind of like, yeah, we can talk. You know, I've known Dawkins for a long time. I first met him when I had a comic running online at MTV's website of all places back in the day, and we kind of reconnected. And Dawkins was like the mastermind behind this whole thing, and just kind of orchestrated us together. So, and we hit it off on our first call, you know, and again, going into that call, I wasn't sure where this was going to go, and I thought, well, I'll get the scope of this, and maybe if this isn't going to be the right thing for me, I'll hand it off. You know, even though I'm a huge wrestling fan, even though I had a sabbatical for a while there, I've always been a big fan of wrestling, enjoyed it. And one Zoom with Tony, and I was like, this is going to be really cool. This is going to be something really special. And off we went to Zoom calls, seeing him more than I talked to some people in my family.
there you go. Now, I know that as of April, you guys hadn't met in person. Was FanFest a couple weeks ago the first time you guys had met in person?
Yes.
Yes.
First time.
Wow. How was that?
Well, he sweat a lot. I noticed that. So we kept giving him towels, and he kept having wrestlers come up to me and wanting my autograph, which was really uncomfortable for me to give a wrestler my autograph. As a matter of fact, it really pissed me off that he would do something like that.
And then I took pictures.
They took a picture of me like signing something for Sammy Guevara, or signing something for Dustin Rhodes, and
then Ricky Starks jumped in too. Then they all started coming in.
I don't mind signing. As a matter of fact, I love interacting with fans. I really do, and I think you saw that, Dirk, when we were all together there for the Fan Fest.
Absolutely,
and I love doing that. But signing an autograph for a wrestler, it's just kind of awkward. It just really is. So it was the first time we met, and I think we all had a good time that day. I met Travis of Source Point, and it was they know how to run a table, and we had a great line out there that day, and it was I would think, Dirk, I think you would agree, it was a pretty good weekend.
Well, it was fantastic. It went so fast, you know, and to Tony's sweating comment, I was told, like, oh yeah, it'll be air conditioning, it's fine. So I wore a suit, which I normally wear just a jacket and dress shirt and slacks when I'm doing a signing. And spoiler, it was not air conditioned. At that point, you're married to the gimmick. I'm like, well, okay, you know. So it was hot, and Tony was kind of ribbing me, and Tony gave away his biggest weakness of knowing that he would not want to sign autographs for the wrestlers. So of course we just had to triple down on that. But no, it was a fantastic weekend. It went so fast. It was like a blur, you know. I mean, it was over before we knew it. You know, I mean, I think, you know, Tony, you can testify to this fact. From the moment you walked up to the table, it was go time.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just, our line was the width of the football field for, I think, 3 hours and 47 minutes of our 4-hour signing. And even after that, when we then took a break, when we were done with our allotted time and walked away, I went back to the table later, and there were still people coming by getting stuff signed. So
real quick, going back, I can only imagine how much Mike Dawkins charged you guys for putting you two together. I can imagine that was a huge bill. just
it was
for putting the two of you together. But also
still paying.
Yeah, you're going to pay for that for the rest of your life.
Right.
But I can imagine, I know, like, I haven't gone to FanFest recently or anything like that. I just go to the grocery store now, and I know how kind of uncomfortable that gets, because now we're just all getting back into the masks off, like the world is kind of coming. So how was that feeling? Like, was it, oh, okay, so can I shake a person's hand? Can I go, like, it was probably weird getting acclimated to seeing people again.
Yeah, you got to think that, first of all, I've been vaccinated, and you got to think that anybody that had their mask off was vaccinated, but you'd never know if that's the case or not. You know, someone could say, yeah, I've been vaccinated, and that person may just not want to wear a mask. We had hand sanitizer, and about a quarter of the way through it, I remember I looked at Travis, I think, because I was beside Travis. I said, we're really going to find out if my vaccine works today.
Right.
Okay. This is really the acid test whether this Pfizer vaccine works. And it was fine. I mean, I didn't get sick, and I did feel kind of odd at first, shaking everybody's hand, because I shake everybody's hand. I ask them their name, pat someone on the back, put my arm around them, take pictures or whatever. Some had masks, most did not. And so, yeah, it was very weird. It really was, but you got to get into it, and you kind of forget about it, the pandemic, for a little while.
Yeah, I did a store signing a couple of weeks before that, just to kind of reacclimate to it after not having done any public appearances in 14 months. With the comic writing, a lot of times I would do 25, 30 appearances a year, and then having such a long break, and then knowing that, FanFest was going to be coming up with things like that. I did a store signing, kind of ease in to see how I would feel about it. I too had been fully vaccinated for a while. I got my 5G magnetic stripe and all that stuff.
Good to go.
And but it was like putting on an old comfy pair of slippers. You just go, and like I said, you just have to presume positive intent. You have to assume that people are acting with integrity in regards to things, and some people were more comfortable shaking hands and stuff, I think, than not. And some people wore masks, most didn't. But yeah, once you get in the thick of it, once you do a signing like that, when it's literally nonstop people, you just go, you just jump in and go. And for me, it was almost weird being at the live events and the pay-per-views that weekend, where you were then sitting or surrounded by people again. That was to me almost more. It took a little more getting used to being sitting in a crowd as opposed to being behind a table. But again, great weekend, everything fine. The vaccines work.
There you go.
Yeah,
that was going to be
work.
My next question too. Tony was finally being back in front of fans. I was just listening to Unrestricted, and Kenny's comment of, looking now to my right and left and seeing fans instead of Austin Gunn yelling in my face
Right.
was fantastic. How was it for you being back there and being able to call those matches in front of fans?
It made the difference, all the difference in the world. It really did. We during the pandemic, Stephanie, we would Tony Khan talks to me a lot during the broadcast, which I really enjoy, because he doesn't scream, he doesn't say bad things to me. He just gives me pointers, and I feel very honored that he would talk to me most, because he wants me. I guess he feels that I do a good job of relaying what he wants. And he would, a lot of times in my ear, said, okay, there's no fans in here tonight, so I need you to, what he would call 1.5. I need you to announce at 1.5. I need you to really hit it hard. I need you to speed up your excitement, hit it 1.5. He never had to do that when fans were in, because the fans, as we thought they would be so thrilled about coming back to and seeing wrestling, that they would cheer anything. And they actually even popped when the referees walked out.
Yeah.
Rick Knox walked out for a match. They cheered Rick Knox. And so they cheered the Varsity Blondes, and the Varsity Blondes are a good team. They're good kids, but they do not have the TV time other guys do. And so it was, it really meant all the difference in the world. It was really, really great being out there, and we could draw off the fans. I think the wrestlers performed much better than they did without people there. So I hope it stays this way for a long time. I really do. And I know when we can start going back live in July, we're going to have some big houses coming up. So I hope the enthusiasm stays up. I think the enthusiasm is not only for wrestling, but the enthusiasm is for life getting back to somewhat normal.
Yeah, I definitely think it's a great combo of both.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was cool. It was cool being in the crowd, and like Tony said, I mean, everyone that walked out, I mean, there was a fever pitch of excitement to just be there and be part of it again, because wrestling is such an interactive experience. It's funny, even with the comic, that's kind of like a thread about like the interaction with this world and this larger than life world. And having gone to many live events over the years myself, and then getting to go back to one like this and just being there. And I'm not saying this just because Tony's here, but being in a company that is exciting and as refreshing as AEW, and being with those like-minded fans, it was, like I said, it was kind of weird to get used to being around people at first, but once the show started, I mean, it was incredible. And the passion for the like-minded fans there is incredible. I think you're going to have loud houses for quite a while, Tony. I mean,
yeah, I hope so.
It was cool.
Getting back to doing the comic and meeting on those Zoom calls, the first couple meetings, Tony, did you go into it with like, okay, these are all the things that I would like to see in it? Or was it more like an interview process from Dirk, like, okay, tell me about this part of your life. Tell me about that part of your life.
It was pretty much the latter. It was pretty much them listening to my stories. And we did it kind of out of order, didn't we, Dirk?
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't do it in chronological. I mean, the book is obviously in chronological order of my career in wrestling, but that's not how we started. And I don't know, Dirk, you can speak to that. I don't know why we did it in out of order.
To keep from getting bored. No, I'm just kidding.
We didn't want to hear all that old
We want
stuff.
to know the good stuff. No,
we're gonna let you two make fun of each other all night long. We're just gonna stay back here. I just want to hear
this. This is really what it comes down to, right? It's like who gets in the last best rib, right?
Yeah.
No, what it was, and Mike Dawkins, to his credit, and I'm gonna have to make another tally mark, because every time we mention his name, we get a bill. He has like a little abacus and just knocks a feet over.
Steph, can you just put in the sound, the cha-ching sound every time we say his
Yeah,
name?
really.
No, but him and I talked, and the way after I met Tony and talked to him and things like that, what really came to me is like, and it sounds so pretentious and I apologize, but like the vision for the book, if you will, was we'll do 10 chapters that span Tony's life in wrestling. So it's not so much Tony's life story as it is from the time as a teenager when he got into first discovered wrestling to where he is now. And knowing that we would go through these 10 kind of chapters to break up his whole life, I decided what we do is we use a different artist for every chapter to kind of best represent that time. So the teenage Tony chapter is a different artist than the AEW chapter of Tony, than the Tony when he got out of wrestling for a number of years. So not knowing Tony very well, but obviously being familiar with the work of the podcast at that point, and I did want to start with stories that would be easiest for me to take that story, turn it into a 10-page comic script, and then give it to him to see what we were doing with it. Because, Tony had never worked with a comic book writer before, and this was a new experience. So if I'm not mistaken, I'd have to go back and look. I think a couple of the earliest ones we did were actually the shortest amount of time, so I could really demonstrate, here's how we're going to capture this story, like your time with Uncle John, or the night of the butts and seats call, or, because it would be very condensed. That way later, when we got to, we do a whole chapter with Tony's life away from wrestling, which I think it's almost 2 decades, isn't it? That you were out, Tony? I mean,
it's about 17 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I would be 18 years, really.
Yeah. There's a chapter that covers that amount of time in 10 pages. I didn't want to jump into that to kind of show how quick we were going to, skim over the top a little bit. But then the night of the butts and seats call is a chapter in and of itself. So I started with ones that were more condensed, just so we could kind of get familiar with the process, and then we started rocking and rolling from there.
Now, how does that process work for you writing a graphic novel? Obviously, with a book, you have so many pages to get through telling a story, but with the graphic novel, you don't have that many. Just what's that like?
like I said, for this book, the foundational element of the book was going to be 10-page chapters. So we're going to look at 100 pages. Obviously, through the Kickstarter, we ended up adding a slew of bonus content. But like Tony said, Tony's a great storyteller. And I would say, all right, let's talk about, when did you first discover professional wrestling? Or walk me through the night of the Butts and Seats call, or walk me through how did you get to AEW, what that was like. And it would be a Zoom call with myself, my editor, Drina Joe. I brought her in to kind of help keep all of us meatheads in line. And then Mike Dawkins and Dave Silva. We're still not sure what Dave did. I don't know. I hope he didn't bill for it, because I think he just hit a button. But
no, he did nothing.
But no, but Tony's a natural storyteller, and he would just tell the story. It would be recorded, obviously. I would take notes. Drina Joe would take notes as well. It's kind of like a backup on certain things that she thought would be very impactful. And I would go through and write a script. And long story short, the way I write a comic script is page 1. I know I'll visualize my mind. It'll have 4 or 5 panels. I describe what's in each panel. You're telling a story in still images. Break it down, send it to Drina. She would look at it. We would tinker with it a little bit, send it to Tony for his approval. He would make notes. The next Zoom call we'd start, he would just go on and on about what a masterful job I did every time. Everything was perfect the first time, pitch perfect, the color of the shirts, the dialogue, everything. And then we would send it to the artist to illustrate, and then repeat that process with the art as well.
Tony, now, like, you've had a lot of these big moments in your career, and now you're being a little bit more introspective and retrospective about them, and you have a chance to look back at them. Walk us through, you get like maybe the first copies and you see yourself in a graphic novel. What does that feel like? Like, that's got to be like a holy shit moment.
Oh, it is. It is, because I love comic books. And the fact is that the process of writing these comic books and then seeing the drawings, it kind of puts your life again in perspective. That first of all, that anyone would be interested in my life blows me away, because of my background and my roots. As a matter of fact, as we're talking, I'm back in my hometown right now, and hung out with some of my friends and yesterday, and went to my mom's old house and sat in the backyard with 7 of my friends and drank beer. And we took a team picture, so to speak. And my daughter saw it, and she said, "How come you're the only one that still looks young?" And I said, "Because I'm the only one that left. Everybody still lives there, and they're crumbling with this old town." So I started out in a real small town. And the fact is that I see my life in pictures now, just kind of like, it just blows me away. I mean, it's amazing. And that's probably why I wanted to do a comic book, because yeah, you can read about it, but if you see it, it's different. I mean, it's much different. That's why everybody writes a book, would love to see their book turn into a movie, because they want to see it. But now my books kind of starts out as a movie, because you can see the different panels and the different, I was thrilled to find that the artist conception of my wife was amazing. And
did you need Lois's approval?
No, because we'd still be working on that.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
Having to explain, I love Lois came on a couple of our Zoom calls. And there's one chapter in the book particular, illustrated by Sally Scott, which is about Tony and Lois's courtship. And we got Tony's side of the story. Then it's kind of have as a rib, but I'm glad we did it. I said, well, okay, now we need to hear the truth, so bring up Lois. And Tony brought up Lois, and then Lois tells her version of the story. In that chapter, Lois ends up pushing Tony out of the way and tells her version of the story. But to Tony's point, when we started showing Lois some of the pictures, we had to keep explaining, well, this is like a cartoon representation. It's a comic book. It's illustrated. Even Tony, throughout the chapters, the different artists will sometimes focus on, have a different interpretation of them. It's different styles. So you actually see, actually it's Diamond 10, 14, no, 24 No, 25. Yeah, it's 25 different artists. 25 representations of Tony in the book, whether it be on the cover or Scott James's version versus DJ Kaufman's version versus Colin Griffin's version versus Jan Apple, who does like a manga anime style. You see different versions of Tony. But yeah, Lois is great, but it was an interesting conversation about how this is interpreted.
I would show her pictures or artist rendition of her, and she would say, "That looks nothing like me." I said, "It is a cartoon. It is a comic book. It is not you, with the exception of the size of the boobs, which really are you. That's not you."
The thing is, like, the artists would have photos, and like some of the process pictures are like literally like the photo of Lois and then the picture next to it. And to me, it's a pretty one-to-one, transfer. But if you're not familiar with comics, I mean, right.
Would you say to her, Lois, they wanted to do your boobs the right size, but they ran out of color pencils?
Yeah, yes. And I also say, oh God, you're setting me up here, man.
I sure am.
I'm not, yes, I am going to say it. I said, if they really wanted to do it now, they would draw your boobs on the top of your knees.
Covered in dog hair. Dog hair.
Yeah.
Right.
But it was a fun process. It really was. And it just, I've seen the advanced copies or the preview copies, I guess is what you call them, Dirk, that we had and that we were signing. And they're pretty amazing. They really are. They're just, it's amazing to see that. And not only to see me, but see the people I work with, see how they drew them. It's really cool.
This feels like a silly question. Did Bug the dog make it in?
Oh yeah.
Multiple times.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
I figured, but I just wanted to ask,
Yeah.
That was a term of Tony's conditions, was that Bug be in the book and that Bug have one more appearance than Lois in the book. If I'm not mistaken. I think that Bug's even on the Kickstarter exclusive cover.
Oh, see, I didn't even notice that.
Oh, yeah, he's back there. Bigger than Lois, I might add.
Now, were there any stories that you wanted to include in it that that either didn't work artistically or you couldn't fit in there?
Well, I have a lot of very crazy stories that probably needed to stay out of the book. Because you incriminate your friends and then you get splattered with the incrimination yourself. So there was a lot of stories that I left out of there. But I think some of the funnier stories that I had in my life that we could tell that didn't really paint anyone in a bad light are basically in there. I mean, we had some and these are mostly bonus stories, right, Dirk? Am I speaking out of school here?
Oh, no. The main story of your life in wrestling is chapters 1 through 9.
Mm-hmm.
Chapter 10, we did a couple of bonus stories, like Klondike Bill, is in chapter 10, so people out there, they'll be happy to know Klondike Bill is in the book. And there's a couple little mini bonus stories that make up chapter 10.
Right.
When we got to the Kickstarter, then we started unlocking more. We did 4 more bonus stories as well. So yeah, they're kind of like the epilogue of like, here's a story with Sting, here's a story with Ric Flair, things like that.
Yeah, there was one thing though that I did kind of massage or fine tune, and that was the story of WCW after Vince Russo arrived, and I say that because I know Vince has a lot of heat with a lot of fans. He's a very divisive character, and I get that, but Vince was very good to me and we worked very well together. We got along. We had a good time. I didn't always agree with some of the stuff he did, and he knew that. And he didn't always agree with my announcing, and I knew that, but we were very friendly with each other. And I didn't want to portray him in a bad light in this book because that was not my relationship with him. It was a very good relationship with him. So I wanted to portray him. I didn't necessarily want to elevate him as the greatest thing in the world. I don't think anyone is in this book. But I just wanted to make sure that my relationship with him was true in this book. So that was, and I got along with Eric, and there was a lot of backstage politics, as we know, in WCW back in the day. But again, these are what happened through my eyes, not necessarily what happened all the time. So when you see me backstage, it's what I saw and it's how I saw things, not necessarily how things always probably really happen. I mean, I'm sure there's somebody look at this butts and seats and say, that's not the way it happened. And I'll say, oh yeah, it did. It's the way it happened from my perspective. So I was really concerned about that. And I really want to make sure that everybody that I work with was portrayed in a good light, because I can't tell you of one person in wrestling that I've met that has been unkind to me, and has been, I mean, I've had friction with some people, but I've gotten along with most everybody. And it's because I try to get along with people. I think that's important for people to get along, especially these days. So I didn't want anybody portrayed in a bad light. And, Dirk and I went back and forth about this one frame. And I said, this guy looks evil. And he wasn't an evil guy.
Take a guess who it was.
What I can do. What's that,
Conrad?
Dirk?
I said, take a wild guess which character it was that the artist kind of made him look evil.
Made him look evil.
Mm-hmm.
Oh God! In Tony's past?
Yeah.
I'll just tell you. I mean, it was Vince Russo.
It was Vince Russo.
Oh, okay. All right, well, that makes sense.
It had a picture of, it was Russo with his hand. It was Russo with his hand patting me in the back.
Yeah.
And it looked like, if you just glance at it, it looked like he was going to stab me in the back with a knife. And I was like
devil. He looked devilish because he had the beard and the goatee, and
I looked like I was worried. And I said, "That's not me and Russo. It wasn't me and Russo at all." He would pat me on the back and he would say, "You're doing a great job. Keep it up." And it would make me. And that, I mean, we went around and round on that a lot. And
we had to keep tweaking it, especially because you do the art before you do the letters. And, and again, I joked earlier about how everything was always perfect the first time. And obviously that's not true. We would go through and massage it. But then you always get the art before you put the lettering on. So you finalize the art and then you put on the letters. So while the lettering would have shown that Vince was actually being very reaffirming to Tony, the way he was drawn, and this isn't any slight on the artist whatsoever. The artist did a fantastic job. But the context, and whether it was patting on the back and his hand on your shoulder, but he just kind of had a grin and a certain look, and I could see where Tony was coming from. We had to kind of go through and keep doctoring it to make sure that the context, knowing some of the history and the baggage that Russo has, whether it's appropriate or not, that he would be depicted fairly, because characters, people like Vince Russo, like Eric Bischoff, like JR, like Tony Khan, like Cody Rhodes, Conrad, Thompson, they all have at times pretty substantial roles in this book. And like Tony said, this is really a representation of what Tony's relationship was like with them, which is positive. This isn't a book that, if people are going to try to pick up this comic and think like, oh God, so-and-so is going to get buried, I'm going to tell you right now, that's not the case. This is about Tony's life in wrestling, and there are peaks and valleys in his journey, but this is not a tell-all book and oh, we're going to, go and here's the real, shit on this guy. That's not the intent. That's not the purpose. And by and large, I don't think that was, like you said, I don't think that was ever your experience with these guys. We never really had to go through and sugarcoat anything.
So here's a question about that Vince Russo thing. Was that the artist's interpretation of what you guys had written, or was that the artist's interpretation of what they knew of Vince Russo?
Well, I don't know if Dirk can answer that. I don't know.
Yeah.
I've not met any of the artists personally, so I don't know how much they knew about wrestling, or how much they knew about the history of Nitro, WCW. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I think there was a little bit of baggage there, but I think it was just a combination of factors that, without the word balloons, led to a certain amount of context we wanted to avoid. I think we were having that conversation. Part of me was going to say, look, if we just put the word balloon on it, it'll bring it together more. But we're dealing with real people here. You want to be sensitive to that. I don't think that the artist in this chapter was necessarily trying to bury him, but you know, when you're drawing real people, you want to be sensitive to any way that people might misinterpret it. You know what I mean? So could there have been a little baggage? Maybe that he was kind of poking, you know, having a little bit of fun with it. I mean, it's not impossible, but the biggest thing for us was and what's funny is ultimately it's very little things that change. You change the eyebrows, you change the smile, whole different context. Because a comic book, you're telling a story in still images. And if you catch a smirk a certain way versus that's all the difference. You know, body language is so much of it. And body language is a crucial component in comic book storytelling. So we just had to make a couple little tweaks to his expression and it was fine. It conveyed more what we wanted to.
Yeah, the last thing you want is someone just to be like flipping through and just see that and not read that word bubble and be able to associate it like that. So totally get where that's coming from.
Right. Yeah. Vince looking like a devil on Tony's shoulder, which obviously, again, is not the case at all.
That's what someone would take a picture of that and just crop it and just leave out the.
Some troll on Twitter will go through and look at this.
Yeah. And then
you get the boobs.
And then you get the Twitter video like, bro, listen.
Yeah, exactly.
Will there be anybody? So now that you've seen everything drawn out, will there be anybody that is in the novel that'll be like, wow, I look goddamn good as a comic book character. Can I get myself as this photo, or can we blow this picture up and make this like a framed thing in my office?
All of them.
Put them all over.
Well, I need to tell you a little story about that. I think you'll enjoy this. I don't even know if I should say it, but it's entertaining, so I'm going to say it. The end shot has me with all of the EVPs, Tony Khan, and Brandy, and of course with the EVPs, Cody and the Bucks and Kenny, have Chris Jericho all standing in the ring, and they have some of my friends like the Butcher and the Blade, who I'm very good friends with, and Britt Baker. As we know, Britt and I are very good friends. And Britt said to me, and I told her, I said, the final shot is going to be all of us in the ring, all of my friends in the ring. She said, I better be standing beside you. I said, okay, you got it, buddy. So we look at the first one and I say, you need to move Cody here and you need to move Britt here. And so.
Right. This was not the original.
Here's the funny part of it, which just, I mean, I laughed for a long time about this. So I showed it to her when we were at the Fan Fest.
Right.
I said, look at, and I'm afraid that she's going to say, that doesn't look like me, or, I should be closer to you because we're friends. And I showed it to her and she said, oh my God, that is fantastic. I went, really? You like it? Yes, it is like a dream. I said, now you're being sarcastic. And she said, no, look at this. I've got big boobs and you're skinny. I said, what? so
yeah, here again, I'll kind of hold it up closely. So there's the shot. With and but yeah, this composition was not the original one. So Austin McKinley drew this chapter, the Becoming All Elite chapter. And wouldn't you know, Austin was one of the only artists in the book that drew his pages on traditional paper rather than digitally. A lot of artists draw digitally now, and only a few did it on paper. I know Scott did, Austin did. So if it's digital, you can just kind of trace them and, move them around. So when we get the revised composition, I'm like, well, Austin, here's the thing. We need to reshuffle everyone. We need to put Britt next to Tony. So then we do, and it went through so this panel, there's 4 or 5 versions of it where, we had to keep shuffling way around to get it just to where it needed to be.
Yeah.
But I'm glad Britt liked it. That probably explains why she did try to body slam me through the table at Fan Fest or anything.
Yeah, she did. No, it's like it's a dream for both of us. It's how we really want to look.
Right.
Shut up.
Okay.
So that's going to be blown up and put everywhere.
Yes, right.
Well, this is the book that Tony was signing for all of.
Yes. Yeah, I saw that.
All the other wrestlers.
Okay, Tony, I'm going to put you on the spot slightly here.
Okay.
The artist comes back to you and they're like, Tony, we have to add one more person. It could either be Rebel or Taz. Who's it going to be?
Oh, it's going to be Taz because I don't want to freaking hear it.
Taz is actually standing behind Tony in this cover. Can't you
Little
see
do
him?
you know.
Can't you see him right there?
Yeah, you can't see him because he's only 2'1".
Right. Well, he's there, right? He's right behind Tony.
I know Chris is like, I don't want any trouble with him.
I didn't say that. I had nothing to do with that. That's these two gentlemen.
Taz,
now,
man.
oh, and you know we're clipping that and making that up. That's going to be on Twitter.
No.
I mean, Tony, you don't have to worry. You're not on Twitter, so you won't know.
Someday I'll be back at Fan Fest. I'll be like, hey, yo, I'll feel the arms wrap around me.
You're going to get choked out. You're going to get choked out.
I was getting even a suplex. Like, good run.
Yeah. Taz is the gift that keeps on giving backstage. He makes me laugh more than anybody. He really does. And it's just, I mean, there's a lot of people. JR makes me laugh. Excalibur, have a great time. But Taz, man, when he gets on a rant, oh, it's the best. It is the absolute best. It's one of the great things of being backstage in AEW.
I would have loved to have a bonus story with like ribs with Taz or like Taz ranting. You know, I mean, it would have been fantastic. Maybe if someday we'll do like the 10th anniversary edition or something. We'll put something in there like that.
There was something happened when when Sting first appeared. It was a big deal. It was a big surprise. Shocked everybody. Really surprised me the night he landed or the night he first arrived, because I had heard that he was coming, but I didn't know for sure. They weren't going to tell me anything for sure. And then I get to the arena that day and Cody says to me, your buddy's here. So what are you talking about? He said, Sting, he's here tonight. I said, you're kidding me. So I went back to his trailer and talked to him. So when he walks out, right, it's a big deal. So the first time I do an interview with him in the ring, or it may have been on the stage, I can't remember. And I go, this is Sting. And he walks out. We did an interview. As the segment comes to an end, we go to a break. I'm walking back to the desk and Taz sticks his head through the curtain and goes, Mark. Okay. And it hit me. I was laughing so much. I don't think I could talk at the beginning of the next segment. And that's how much fun I have with Taz. So,
oh my God. I'm going to have to go back and watch that segment
man.
just to see how it was afterwards.
Yeah.
You know, you touched on something there, and it's something that Steph and I have talked about a lot on the show and to ourselves when we're just watching AEW. You guys have done an amazing job of keeping things a secret. Like when someone's there, I mean, you said it yourself, you didn't even know Sting was coming, and you're a pretty integral part of the show. That's I think that's something that as a wrestling fan, I appreciate, because I don't want to know 3 days before that Sting is coming. I want to know that night. So is that something that from the beginning of AEW, maybe Tony and everybody at the top said, look, if you want this to work, you got to keep your mouth shut? Or is that something that the boys in the back kind of are like, hey, everybody zip their lips?
Yeah. Well, I think Tony has certainly, especially during the tape shows that we have, and we've had to tape like 2 weeks in advance because of our schedule, and it would be very easy for somebody to give away a tape show. And there have been people giving away tape shows. And Tony has been very adamant to try to stop that. And he has meetings with the guys, says, listen, do not give away anything. This is your job. And it's important you don't do that. And I think because everybody respects Tony so much, and they really do, and loves him so much as a boss, that they're willing to keep it a secret. And when we have meetings, we have production meetings. We'll have a production meeting the day before. It used to be at the arena in the catering room, and now we have it, on a telephone call, and then we'll have a meeting like an hour and a half before airtime. And Tony does not give anything away in that meeting. Nothing. He doesn't tell us anything about what's going to happen. He just goes through what is going down, and he will say, and at the end of this. We've got like 3 minutes for a post-match angle, and it should be something very fun. And that's all he'll say.
Wow.
So I knew Sting was coming in, but he didn't tell me about it. And there's a lot of things that happen on this show that he will smart me up in my ear about, but not tell me when everybody's in there together. And I've always liked it that way. I really do. I think they're in trying to make a wrestling show and make a storyline mean something. You got to have your announcers know which way you want to direct the fans somewhat, or which way you want to point them. I get it. But Tony, I think, has enough confidence in the three of us as announcers that we are going to do the right thing without going off on a tangent. And so he lets us do our own thing. And it's worked. It is really worked. And I agree. I mean, and I know we're going to have a lot more surprises coming up. I didn't know Mark Henry was going to be there until Mark Henry was there the day of the event. And and I saw him there, and I talked to him, and I'm thinking, I saw Dave LaGreca, and I thought, oh, I got it. They're going to record something for Busted Open. Well, I was told later that evening, no, Mark is going to start doing stuff for Rampage. I didn't know that. And so that was, I don't know if people had known that or not. I thought that was a pretty good secret. Ethan Page showing up was a good surprise to have him show up. And Andrade, that shocked me. Now, you hear things, right? I mean, when Vince lets people go or contracts run out, automatically fans are going to think, well, he's going to end up in AEW, which is not necessarily always the case. But it shocked me that Andrade was here. And so, those things, that they'll bring them in and they'll put them in a trailer in the back, and the guys will stay in their trailer the entire day. They won't get out. They won't go to catering. They won't walk around in the back, nothing. So, yeah, we've done a good job of that. We really have.
And I think you tell the difference between those reactions too with you guys. Like the genuine reactions are just so fun as a fan to hear, see people on the sides reacting and seeing these people. Like you can just tell the difference between someone who knew in advance and someone who didn't.
Yeah. The great reaction when Sting walked out that night was the reaction ringside of these, the wrestlers that we have, which are independent wrestlers who are trying to make a name. And, we hire them to wrestle on Dark and Elevation, and they wrestle, and they're our ringside fans. Their reaction to Sting coming out was mind blowing. I mean, they were giving each other high tens, and people were hugging. It was like, I would have given anything to see Sting walk from his trailer to the go position that night. And guys turning around and seeing him and seeing his reaction. That would have been cool.
Yeah, really.
Funny you talk about the spoilers. I don't know if we had a chance to tell you this, Tony, but Sunday morning at breakfast, I was having a meeting with Travis and Rena Joe, and we were talking about the comic and stuff. And all of a sudden, I look over and I see Mark Henry. And I'm like, you can't do like one of those double take and like, Travis, I go. And he goes, that's Mark Henry. So we actually were kind of talking amongst ourselves. And of course, we're not going to say anything, we don't want to spoil it. But we were sure he was going to be the surprise entrant in the Battle Royal. We were like, oh, this is going to be it. He's going to come out, he's going to, and instead Leo Rush came out, which was also really cool.
Right. But
then I'm like, oh, well, okay. Well, I guess Mark's just here as a fan or whatever. So then when he comes out later in the night after all to announce, that he is with the promotion, it's like we swerved ourselves. And again, we got to have that really authentic pop moment all over again. But you're right. I mean, where we were eating breakfast, we were having a breakfast meeting, was fairly isolated. And we were kind of joking. We're like, oh man, is this going to be on Twitter? Is someone going to spoil this? As far as I know, no one said a thing. Anyone that saw him. And it was just really refreshing to see that anybody that might have seen him, no one did the gorilla picture and posted it online, or, go to the dirt sheets and like, oh, Mark Henry is seen in Jacksonville. It was just a really, really cool surprise.
It's more than that. It's finishes of matches too, and not necessarily knowing who's going to go over and who's not going to go over. One quick example was when Kenny Omega won the world title from Jon Moxley. I didn't know how that finish was going to go. And so Don goes with the microphone. Don's up on, he's with us at the desk. He takes the microphone. They hit Moxley over the head with it. Kenny wins the title, and they run out the arena with Alex Marvez chasing them. And Alex Marvez said something about, Don Callis says, you'll hear more about it on Tuesday night. And when he said that, I remember thinking, that stupid son of a bitch, we're on Wednesday nights. Okay. And then Alex Marvez said exactly what I was going to say without calling him son of a bitch. He said, you mean Wednesday? He said, no, Tuesday on Impact. I went, what? Our belt's going to be on Impact? See, I didn't know any of that was going down.
Wow.
And so they did a great job of I thought, hiding all that. So again, the finishes are kept, for the most part, kept from me. If I want to know, Tony will tell me, but let it ride, man.
What I love about both of your stories, actually, all the stories you just told there, what they're doing, they're turning people in the industry back into fans, which is how they probably got into this business to begin with.
Yeah.
Like when Tony's getting excited and when wrestlers are high tenning because Sting is there, and when Dirk is like, holy shit, Mark Henry's here, you're turning people who normally would get kind of like, just over time, you just get used to that kind of stuff because you're in the business. But when you get them to pop over something, then you know you're doing something right.
Right. I've often said, and I really believe this, I've always said it, not necessarily out loud, but I've always believed that the best wrestling announcer you can be is when you cease to become an announcer and start to become a fan during the match. And I think that's kind of what we've become on many levels, in many different matches. Now, not all matches are great. I get that, but the matches that really work, we're really excited about it.
And it's funny coming full circle with the comic book too, is one of those things where obviously being a fan of wrestling and being a fan of Tony personally and professionally, knowing that there's a lot of people who are going to read this comic initially because they're fans of Tony as well. I wanted to make them fans of comic books, which is why we did the approach we did with the 10 different artists, which originally started as 10 artists and ballooned into 25 artists and things like that. And it was like one of these things where I'm like, I was even a little nervous when I first pitched to Tony the idea about what to do a different artist for each chapter, because I'm like, you know what? There's all these fans. Tony is this legacy character in professional wrestling. There's these people that maybe have not read a comic book since they were little, have never read a comic book at all. And I want to show them the power of the medium. And I want to make them fans of this medium too. I love wrestling. I love comic books. And to me, there's such a, Tony's, I learned this term from Tony, a Venn diagram, apparently, when they kind of overlap. Like,
I really don't think that's the term Tony's looking for.
No, Venn diagram.
I just
we were talking one day, and he was talking about a Venn diagram, and I said, stop with the Venn diagram bullshit, because I don't want to hear it. There's no Venn diagram in wrestling.
But there is between comics and wrestling. They're very much a crossover, if you will.
There's an overlap somehow.
An overlap.
Do us a favor, write a Venn diagram on a sheet of paper, okay? And then burn it.
Yeah, wad it up. I was saying wad it and stick it up your right.
Okay.
That's what I thought he was going with that. Yeah. So one thing I wanted to ask before, and I think this is a good way to kind of bring it all together. Tony, I listen to the show every week. Huge fan. I mean, I tell Steph to listen. I love the show. One of the things I love is that you and Conrad genuinely bust each other's balls in such a good-hearted way. But one question I wanted to ask you, over the years, like, who are some of the legendary ball busters in wrestling?
Oh my God. The legendary ball buster in wrestling, before I got into it, that everybody knew was Johnny Valentine. And it was, some of the stuff he did was pretty vicious, but it was legendary. And I think Flair did a good job of that.
Okay.
Because Flair's MO was always to get people drunk so they would make a fool of themselves. So you would entertain him. And Kurt Hennig, I know some great stories. Kurt Hennig was one of the greats. And of course, everybody knows about Owen Hart being one of the greats of all time. I think that backstage in AEW now, I've become one of the better ones. And I say that because when I first started, I was pretty much the age of some of these guys, maybe a little bit younger, right? And now they're all like my kids. So they're all the age of my kids. So I can really, bust their balls about things and, give them a hard time. And, guy will come out and he'll have a match that night, and I'll see him the next day and I'll say, "Hey, great match last night." He'll go, "Yeah, thanks." And they always say something like, "Is there anything you can tell me? Any critiques?" I say, "Yeah, learn how to fucking sell." And then I'll walk off. Okay. And then they'll go, "Were you serious?" I said, "Yes, I was serious." And I'll walk off again. Of course I'm not, but I'll say things to them like that. But Hennig was one of the best ones ever. Johnny Valentine was tremendous. Flair was tremendous. And Arn Anderson. Arn Anderson can cut a promo on you backstage like nobody can. Nobody can. He saw me. I love to wear colorful stuff like I got on right now. Love colors, love pastels. And I had a dark purple pair of shorts on and a light purple Tommy Bahama shirt. And Arn came up to me and he says, "You know what you look like?" I said, "No, I don't. You look like an Easter egg." He said, "And that's okay because you're the shape of one anyway." It just stuff like that. And we just do that all the time. It's part of the lore. And I think I got busting balls because I traveled with a baseball team for many years. And athletes bust balls all the time. So it's a lot of fun.
But I feel like it also, so I come from an Italian family where we all bust each other's balls, but it comes from a place of love, because I feel like when you don't bust a person's balls, that's when you feel like, okay, they might take it too seriously. They're not going to get it. I'm not going to do that to them. But you do it to the people that you understand that you're just joking.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So Eddie Kingston and I have a running feud all the time.
Oh gosh, I bet that's great.
Yeah.
When he cut that promo for the comic, he was one of the first ones to do a video drop for the book. And God, I marked out so hard. I just laughed my ass off. I said, "Well, what is this, Schiavone? You want me to cut a promo for your stupid comic book or whatever?"
I got on the other day because he came out in that black suit of his, with the tank top, and he had a yellow belt on. And I said, "Eddie, get rid of the yellow belt." "What's wrong? You don't like the yellow belt?" I said, "No, I love yellow belts, but not someone has a belly lapped over it. I don't." So we give each other a hard time all the time, and he's good at it. So,
real quick before we kind of wrap this up and let you go. So sometimes when you watch the '86 show, guys will be cutting promos and they'll drop little inside joke nuggets inside the promos. They only get. Do you still do that now in AEW, or is that kind of?
No, I don't think we do it. No, not like we did back then.
But I know you guys do it in commentary.
All the time.
All the time.
All the time.
Are you trying to make each other pop?
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely we are.
And who's the worst at keeping a straight face?
Me. Yeah. I can keep it. Here's the damnedest thing. I can keep a straight face on camera. I can, but when we're not on a camera and they say something, I'll fall out. I literally will fall out. Yeah. So
I wish we could see that. I wish they could put a camera on you guys to watch that.
Yeah.
But real quick, so it's buttsinseatscomic.com, correct?
Yes, you can still pre-order the book right now. The pre-order window will be closing soon, but you can pre-order it at buttsinseatscomic.com. Yes.
But then it got, if I'm correct here, it got picked up and it's going to be available like nationwide in stores and stuff, correct?
It will. You can pre-order it now, get it directly from our publisher, SourcePoint Press. You'll be able to get it that way before it goes into bookstores and things like that. So if you want to get your copy early, you can pre-order through buttsinseatscomic.com. Otherwise, it'll be available everywhere and anywhere you can get comic books and graphic novels. You'll be able to see Tony Schiavone's face, for better or for worse, staring out at you from a comic book cover.
Mm-hmm. And right next to
on the ropes as chaos erupts around him, as is his life.
Right next to Britt's amazing boobs.
Absolutely.
He could only wish that would be on the final cover. But on page 94,
I think Britt could only wish that would be on the cover.
Right. Page 94, you get his arm right there.
Yeah, you're gonna have to get a special one for Britt.
Yes.
special edition cover.
We are.
Just the two of you. Just
That's
say it's
exactly.
all your best friends and just draw her in like 7 different versions.
That's very good, Chris. That's good. I like that.
Thank you.
Job security. If you need someone to write it, I'm in. Let me know.
Yeah.
There we go. There's number 2. We got number 2 right there. Britsandseats.com.
That's
There we
good.
go. There we go.
There it is. That'll Tony. That'll be our 2 butts, 2 seats.
Yeah, I
It'll
know.
be
We're
2
we're
butts,
gonna
2 seats.
we're
Brits
gonna
and
do
seats.
it. We're gonna do another edition. I'm gonna become a superhero.
That's right.
Have to.
That I definitely want
Would
to
the
she
next
see.
be-
step.
I know we gotta go. Would she be your partner or your rival, like your arch enemy?
She'd be my arch enemy. She'd be my Catwoman. Get it?
Oh, I've been
Uh-huh.
reading Twitter lately. I see. Yeah.
Ooh, I see the rating on this one going up a little bit. Maybe like an NC. Do they do NC-17 comics? I don't even know.
I don't know.
You're gonna find out next year in 2 butts, 2 seats. Brits in seats.
I can't wait. Dirk, Tony, thanks so much. We had a blast talking to you.
Thank you, Chris.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Steph. Good talking to
Thank
both
you.
of you.
Yeah. Thank you both.